The law of assumption. Just assume it. Just let it be. These are words that we have all heard or have been told directly. And most of the time, when we do this, everything ends up being easier than it was. For all of you who did not know, this is part of the law of assumption. So what is this law of assumption? Hello and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we take a look at the law of assumption and how it works. But if you want to know how you can use it to make your life better, then you have to watch this video and click the link in the description below for more info. And do not forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos. And with that said, let's get to it. The law of assumption is not like other physics laws or other scientific laws. This law is more psychological as it mostly affects how your mind works. The law of assumption simply states that whatever you assume as true becomes your reality. What do we mean by this? What we mean is that if you assume good things or better things for your life, then they will come to pass. In simpler terms, you can think of it as the fake it till you make it rule. The law of assumption will help you manifest your desires by assuming the feeling that you wish to achieve or fulfill. Neville Goddard, a Barbadian author who wrote on the Bible, mysticism, and self-help, was the one who introduced this law of assumption. He taught that nothing exists outside of your consciousness. He goes on to say that your entire experience of the world is simply a projection of your internal consciousness. But what does this mean? What we assume, more often than not, becomes reality. However, we do not always know what we are assuming. Most of the time, we assume things subconsciously that we do not even see or know. But what if we told you that you can take control of this mentality or these assumptions and use them to achieve your goals? Goddard says it best. Everything you experience is a result of you changing your consciousness. The best way to achieve this is by changing your assumptions and assuming the presence of your desire. This is the only way that brings your goals and your aims into a clear picture and strives to achieve them. Before you start doing something, your mind has already created an assumption of what the experience will be like. Sometimes you may have subconsciously created a feeling of fear even before you start doing something, or even before you give it a try. But if you can get a hold of these assumptions and mentality, then there is nothing that you cannot achieve. Because by getting a hold of it, you can create your own imagination of what that experience will be like. There are certain techniques that you can use to make this law of assumption work for you. Do you want to know these techniques? Click the link in the description to know more. Also, subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos. Hit the bell button to get notified of later videos. So, on to the techniques. First of all, get clear on what you want, or rather, what you desire. But not just being clear, but being crystal clear. Sometimes we have multiple things that we desire and want to manifest. Just take it one step at a time. Pick one that you would like to focus on and write it down. This is one of the best techniques that you can use to manifest whatever you want. Once you decide on what you want to focus on, write it down in detail. You can write it down in your diary or even in your notebook. Be as specific as you can and make sure that you explain every detail. Next, imagine your desire in the first person. What do I mean by this? After writing it down, take some time to imagine the feeling, the experience, and the task. The best way to achieve this is by imagining it in all 5 senses. How would it feel when you touched it? What would the smell be? How would it taste if you tasted it? How would you hear it? And most of all, how would you see it? While answering these questions, take some time to imagine your feelings and experiences. Before you proceed with fulfilling your desire, make sure you answer these questions. If you do not have an answer for any of them, then go back and imagine it until you answer them. You have to live in that moment. You have to make it part of you. And the best way to do this is to picture yourself in it. This step is the one that uses the law of assumption to its fullest because you have to imagine everything and assume it. You have to make sure that you tap into the subconscious part of your mind to feel it. The better you can imagine it, the better your results will be at the end. Can you use what you wrote down to help you imagine? Since you wrote down every detail, expound on these details and turn them into an alternate reality. See yourself standing in the moment and feeling everything. Use the images that you have created for yourself and get a specific emotion. This is the emotion that you most want to feel. Most of the time, people will say happy, relieved, or pleased. But you have to be even more specific than this. Make sure that the emotion is in the same line as the desire that you want to work on. You have to think bigger than the norm. If you get that emotion, then make sure you feel it. Make sure that you live with it until the time comes when you achieve your desire. As you live in this emotion, according to the law of assumption, assume that you have already fulfilled your desire. By the time you get to the emotion that you want to feel, you will have already cultivated the feeling that you have already fulfilled the desire in your mind. However, as much as you have already cultivated this feeling in your mind, you should bridge the gap between the imagined and the real. You should live as though you have achieved it, but also remember that it is what you are striving to achieve in the end. Do not be so immersed in your imagination that you forget the reality around you. According to the law of assumption, once your mind about something changes, then so does the external reality. They both have to find a point of balance, and if your mind sticks to one thing, then your reality will have to adapt to it. After all, the world is simply a projection of your consciousness. After all this, just repeat the whole process frequently. It does not mean that every time you go back and change the feeling you want, or change your desire. Not at all. Whenever you feel like your own assumptions on the issue are being challenged, then go back a few steps and start all over again. Remember, nothing is impossible to achieve. Everything can be achieved. However, even as you set your desires, do not limit yourself to the usual, and do not think of the almost impossible. Start with something that you can achieve in the next few months or years. Once you achieve that, then move on to the next, then the next, and before you know it, you will have achieved so much more than you could have ever thought of. One of the greatest hindrances to the law of assumption is the fact that the human mind is always biased towards negativity. As you progress, you may reach some point where your mind tells you that you cannot do it. As much as your mind can be your greatest asset, it can also be your greatest limiter. When your mind starts telling you this, ignore it and move on. Do not accept being pulled into negativity, because it will bring you down. In some cases, you might even stop and give up. But instead, when your mind starts thinking negatively, change it and think positively. Make sure that you convince yourself that you can do it and never stop. If you feel like it is too much, you can take a break from it, meditate, and then go back to working towards your desire. Once in a while, walk up to the mirror, look at yourself, and tell yourself that I possess that which I desire. Other times, when you're in a state that is similar to sleep, just chant, I have everything I desire. Tell yourself this until you believe it. Make your mind firm on this, and keep telling yourself this more often. Other times you can say, my wish has been fulfilled. Believe me when I tell you that telling yourself these statements once in a while plays a very important role in you achieving your goal. Remember one thing, fulfilling your desires does not happen all at once. It is a process and requires a lot of self-discipline. If you can get a hold of your subconscious, then there is nothing that you cannot achieve. As you start the process, it may seem impossible, and at some point, it will seem super difficult. But if you keep motivating yourself and make sure that you do not stop working towards it, then you will make it. The law of assumption is extremely powerful, but if you use it correctly and follow the steps outlined above, you can achieve anything. And that concludes today's episode. I hope you liked the video. If so, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment. Also, make sure to turn on the notification feature so you will never miss any updates. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again.